I'm the Deputy Director for Maritime Industry Development. But as I stand here right now, I'll be wearing a different hat. I'm wearing a hat of an ex-seafarer. What my sisters and ex-colleagues have shared is something that I know only too well. And as they shared their experiences, there were times when I tried to hold back the tears because it brought back certain traumas that I thought I had gone over or I had suppressed. But as things start coming up, you realize that no, you did not overcome, but you just pretended as if it does not exist. So I'm here as a facilitator, so I will not speak too much. I will allow the employers, if I can call you that, and the shipmanning agencies to be able to share their own perspective, especially on what has been said today. I would like, from my far left, a representative from AMSOL, may you please introduce yourself.
Good evening everyone, my name is Wilma Kapp. I represent AMSOL, and from AMSOL's perspective, the conversations that was had today really touched our hearts, because as employers, we are also humans, we are also people, and to hear the conversations that was shared with everybody today really makes you sit and think and wonder what we are doing, and interested in having the conversation with everybody to see where we can do better. Yes, we have policies in place, we have our sexual harassment policy in place, we have grievance procedures in place, and we are there to support our seafarers. But if we listen to the conversations that was had today, we are wondering, are we doing the right thing? And for us, it's very important to have honest conversations to see where we can improve and what we can do to make the conversation open, to do away with the victimization, with harassment and bullying. And we must be honest with each other that these things do happen. We can't sit here after listening to what has happened today and say that doesn't happen in our organization, but it does. And what we need to do is be proactive and address these issues and have the conversations what we're having today so that we can progress. What we would like to see is for people to have the freedom to come forward without the fear of victimization, for us to change what we are doing. Because we, even though that we are ashore and we say that we support our seafarers, we do not know what we are doing wrong if people don't tell us what we are doing wrong. And even though we have all the policies in place, we want to have the conversation and move forward and take these action points to see how we can improve and support our crew.
Thank you, Ms. Kapp. Thank you so much. Okay, maybe at this point, can you just introduce yourself, your name and surname, and which organization you come from, and then we will delve into the discussions later on. Thank you so much.
My name is Ross Volk. I'm the Managing Director of MSC Cruises South Africa.
Good afternoon, my name is Mahmoud Amala. I'm from Transnet National Ports Authority, the dredging section as the Marine Compliance Manager.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Nothando Minange, representing the South African International Maritime Institute, known as SAIMI. Today I'm standing in for our CEO, Mr. Odon Tati.
Well, thank you so much for heeding to the call when you received the invitation. And in the room right now, we actually have the biggest employers of seafarers in this country right now. We have AMSOL, we've got MSC, and we have TNP. And then we have Sahimi. Yes, I do understand that Sahimi is heading the cadetship program where you are assisting in the recruitment of cadets and placing them on the vessels so that they can be able to further their education and find sea time so that they can be able to qualify as officers. So before I actually speak to you, the year was 2000. I had just received an acceptance from Natal Technicon. Now it's called DUT. Okay, that should tell you how old I am. And upon acceptance, it was called a provisional acceptance at the time. I received a call and I was called for an interview, okay, by the HOD. He says, so I was like, okay, why would he want to see me? So I go in and then he sits me down. He says, I see that you have applied to study maritime studies and you have chosen the sea-going option. The first question was that, do you know what it means to go to sea? Do you know that it is a hostile environment? This is me still fresh from high school, just going into college. Do you understand that this is a hostile environment? Okay, obviously I did not have all the details. So then I had to ask, why do you say so? How is it hostile? Then he first started talking to me about, hey, you know, the ship, hey, you know, sometimes it goes through the Bay of Biscay. In fact, it's called the Bay of Biscuits. Everybody knows why, because sometimes when you are going through the roaring 40s, biscuits are the only thing that you can keep down. Because the ship will be rolling from one side to the next one. Port to starboard, up to, I don't know, like all the way. Sometimes when it goes the other way, you think it will not come back. And then he said, are you sure that this is the environment that you want to work in? Mind you, this is before I even attended classes. And I said, yes, I'm sure this is what I want to do. Okay, fine. Fast forward, I attended the very first lecture. We were about 30 students in the class who had enrolled for maritime studies in the year 2000. Let me try to engage you a bit. We were 30 in the class in total. How many of those 30 do you think were females? Take a wild guess. You say one?
One.
You say one? Two? The number 5 keeps coming. I think it's somebody who was in class with me. Yes, we were 5 ladies in the class. Okay, so just as Captain Dabosha had said, I was coming from an all-girls high school. Now I get to tertiary. I'm in a class, it's only 5 girls. All right? Okay, so I'm like, oh, all right. So this is where I'm coming, right? Okay, fine. And a lot of illustrations are done within the class to describe the ship and things that happen on board. And we are called certain names in the class. Yes, in the classroom. But the captain, Shane, he passed on many years ago. May his soul rest in peace. Why is that funny? Many of you who went under that captain will know who I'm talking about. Because we're not here to mention names, right?
Yeah, no.
Yes. Okay. Alright, so he would say certain statements whilst we're in class, and then it became the norm. This is how it is. This is how we should expect life at sea to be like. Right? So, when I think back now, I say to myself, actually, when he said that the environment is hostile, I should have read between the lines. It's not only the external environment that is hostile because of the waves of the sea or of the adverse weather or anything like that, but it's the internal environment that is hostile to somebody who is a female, number one, and who is also black. Because remember, sometimes you would be on board as the only female on board. That's all the crew members in the engine room and on the deck side. The only female on board. Okay, fine. Now, I would like to assume that as an employer, you would want to create a conducive environment for your employees, whether they be male or female, so that you can get the best out of them, right? Now, what I want to find out, based on the theme that we are gathered here on today, which is discussing gender-based violence at sea, would you say that your company, as you are sitting there, has actually done something to address this issue? Okay, I will start from my far left again.
Thank you. Like I've said, we've got the policies and procedures in place to deal with harassment, but also last year as a company, AMSL looked at what was happening around us with the type of discussions that's going on, and we also introduced an anonymous hotline where any of our employees can report any incident, whether it's fraud, corruption, harassment, whatever might be happening. It's an anonymous reporting managed by a third party, not managed by AMSL itself, and which then, if that is reported AMSL, they report it to AMSL, and we need to investigate and give a response within 21 days. And no names are revealed. We are just given the case and to investigate, because we realize there may be instances where people don't feel free or safe to report matters that is happening, and that is why we have that hotline that we have introduced since last year.
Okay, thank you very much. AMSL says that they have an anonymous helpline that is now newly established. Do you know when it was established?
I think it was in June last year.
It was in June last year.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll move right along. Same question from MSC.
Thanks very much. Well, it's a difficult one, because if you say yes and there's a problem, you look bad. If you say no, well, you also look bad. So it's kind of a no-win situation. I think from an organizational perspective, the culture and the ethos that's created from the top is important. The fish rots from its head. So you need to ensure that the leadership empowers the people to have the right kind of messaging. And similar to AMSL in terms of HR officers having complaints registered, third parties administering it, doing the investigations, all those good practices happen. But people are people, and I think you need to change the culture through the organization. That takes some time. And I've always maintained that the situation that you have to educate people And if I just take a look at the shore-based side of the MSC, I know it's not part of the conversation, but just for reference point, MSC South Africa is 85% female, our management team is 75% female. Okay. I'm one of the very, very rare male participants in the organization, and that creates the right culture in the space because we have a balanced feedback, and I think that's kind of what's trying to progress through the organization and trying to progress on board. I don't say we're perfect, and there's certainly a lot of room for improvement, and there's a lot of things we need to do differently, but it's inculcating into the culture that there's respect for everybody. It's regardless of what your creed, your color, your whatever you sort of identify with, it really is about the mutual respect for everybody, and it pays nothing to be respectful to people. It's such a simple thing to be respectful, and I think that's what the culture of the business, I know the owners, I know who's looking after the process, and that's what they're trying to inculcate through the entire process and the entire value chain.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Yes, I suppose whilst it's the government's responsibility to ensure that these policies are there, but it continues to remain the responsibility of the company to...
I don't necessarily agree that government must be the oversight, but if we're true to every aspect of life, sustainability, gender-based neutrality, respect, these are values that have to be exhibited from all people. The government can't tell me what my organization needs to look like. They can wag a stick and beat me if I don't do it properly. But I have to inculcate in my organization respect for all people. And I have to drive that process as the leader of the organization. I go on board my ships. I was on board the first cruise of the season, talking to the crew, introducing myself to the crew to have a conversation with. I try to go on anonymously, but it never works because everyone does know who you are, but you go and have a conversation with people. I go and speak to people in the mess hall, I go and speak to the captain, I go and speak to the waiters, I go and speak to the cleaning staff, because I want people to see what it means to lead an organization in terms of culture. And I don't think that it's government's responsibility. They can place things in place, but the organizations have to do it. If we want a world free of prejudice, we have to solve the problem. Not government, unfortunately, sorry, Mr. pointing the finger at you, but we have to solve the problem.
Point taken, point taken. Okay, moving right along.
Okay, as Transnet, they do have policies and procedures in place. I'm speaking more of it from a more permanent point of view, because the drilling services works more within the port system and within the national ports. But as Transnet, we do have, they have active awareness programs that they do addressing a large number of bullying, harassment. They have an employee assistance program which is available 24/7 for employees. So employees don't necessarily need to go through their own line or chain of command. They can go directly to employee assistance program and discuss these issues, and there's a wide range of support that's available to them at that side. Still more work to be done. There are strategies that they have put into place where they're looking at it more actively from a gender-based violence point of view. There's workshops that are being held individually with just women and then just men to bring up the issues. There's a women's network that they are developing, opening up so that there can be open discussions. As well as men's network where they can also have engagements so that they feel comfortable within their own space to discuss the issues. But more work needs to be done, and obviously listening from what was being discussed today, it's not all perfect. If you feel like there's no complaints coming through, that everything is okay, because people are just basically not saying it. Some of the aspects that maybe are not being discussed could be from a psychological point of view, where women are second-guessed, where there are slurs used against them, where they, just because they happen to be in a senior position and share views or are discussing concepts, it's not easily accepted because they just, the fact that they're women and the rest of the community or audience is male. there's also cultural biases that we need to work with, where traditionally if we're coming from a patriarchal background, it's not okay to take instructions from the women. Then there's also ageism that comes into place, because sometimes the women that are going on board are young. And they have to be addressing individuals that are much older than themselves. I'm fortunate in that in our training school, the health and safety side has a few hours to discuss issues with the pilots when they're going through a pilot training program, the truck masters when they're going through the truck master training program, and very often the discussion that comes off the floor is the very same thing. That I am young, I'm 20 something, and my crew that's under me is well in excess of the age of 20, they're 30, they're 40, and we get told, you little nipper coming here telling me what to do. So there's work that needs to be done in that aspect as well.
Okay, thank you so much. You can also just please respond.
From an employment statistics point of view, SAIMI has over 70% of its staff personnel being women. So just less than 30% being males. And this employment statistic is distributed from your junior level up until senior level, which encourages and shows and displays the confidence in women empowerment and also women leadership. And also being the implementing agent for the National Seafarer Development Program, the safety and wellness of our employees and project beneficiaries remains our main priority. We are currently at a development stage with a comprehensive wellness program that will assist all our project beneficiaries to deal with all the confronting issues, be it psychological issues or mental health issues or personal issues that they might experience when they're on board the ship or also at home. And also, with regards to the facilitation of accommodating female cadets on board, we have funded a few programs where there was a conversion of cabins to accommodate the hosting of female cadets on board.
Okay, thank you very much. You said you are from SAIMI, right?
Yes.
Okay, and obviously SAIMI does not own any ships, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so when we recruit and place cadets on vessels that are owned by other shipping companies, which are not South African companies. How are you then able to ensure that your policies that you have spoken about in how you are then trying to prevent gender-based violence on girls or even on males is achieved when you do not have full control of the vessels? Is there a mechanism that you have in place? Is there a reporting mechanism?
Okay, thank you. So with regards to accommodating our project beneficiaries, the National Cadet Program is coordinated and managed by SAIMI with the assistance of SAMSA and Marine Crew Services. These two training providers do have company policies that speak directly to gender-based violence that integrated with the policies of the ship owners, the shipping companies that they have contracts with. As SAIMI, we have a work readiness program where just before a cadet starts their cadetship, they need to do a company-specific induction where we do a job readiness. We facilitate on the diversities and cultures and also the different nationalities and different social orientation. And then that program runs for approximately 3 days when they are fully inducted on all those differences that they might experience when they do go on board, they are further transferred to the training providers that do their own specific induction as well, covering most of the things that we covered, and also ensuring our beneficiaries that they are aware that there are policies that protect them when it comes to gender-based violence, and giving them an atmosphere of being able to report should there be any incidents regarding GBV.
Okay, noted, and thank you. Okay, I'll go back to Enzo. You've got an anonymous line, right? As from the time it was implemented till today, have you had any reports? And how many of those reports, and what was done about that?
Right. About the hotline, we haven't had reports about sexual harassment. There's been other reports that was made to us. I think a total of 3 reports, and those has been addressed, but it didn't speak to sexual harassment or the issues that is being addressed here today. I can just add that from our perspective, we also have employee wellness program that all our seafarers and their direct families have 24-hour access to, even when they're at sea. So they can also raise issues of concern via the employee wellness. And we also have regular sessions that is run either by our CEO. We've got open discussions with our seafarers via online meetings or sessions where we discuss gender-based violence. We've got sessions that is arranged by our employee wellness program that addresses the GBV issue, and we encourage the discussion to try and open up the floor for people to talk about what's happened in the past and how we can improve and what we can do to support our seafarers.
Okay, thank you. From where I'm sitting, I'm a bit worried that you have not had any reports. Because one could ask, is it because people are already not comfortable reporting? Or does it mean that the systems that you have in place and the programs that you have where you are training people and creating awareness within your staff is actually working?
Yeah, of course. We can only go on what we know, and that is why we try and make the reporting lines accessible for people by the hotline that is anonymous, to encourage that if people do not feel safe to report it to us as the employer, that they can report it to somebody else that's got no direct connection with the employer. And that is what we try and encourage, that people have the courage to come forward and tell us what is happening on the ground so that we can act on it.
Okay, no, all right, thank you. Moving along. Sir, can you share with us if you've had any such reports from your company and how you have dealt with them?
So I can't share the details of them, obviously, because there's confidentiality issues, but there are mechanisms that are reported. I mean, I get a lot of reports every day of what happens on board any ship within the fleet. And I can only speak to the cruiser side of things. I'm not privy to the information on any cargo vessels. But from a cruiser's perspective, there's a multi-layered sort of reporting space, and you try and create Chinese walls between things. So for example, the HR officer on board the vessel doesn't report to anyone but the captain and the HR officer sitting in London in an independent space. And what will happen traditionally is that those complaints will go through, if it's the line manager, it'll come to HR, and HR will immediately go and push it through to HR in head office, and that will then be investigated by an investigative team on board. So it does happen, and what we've tried to build in from a cruise vessel perspective is sort of the ability, if you don't feel comfortable to come and speak to, as an example, myself, you can have a conversation with someone else in the organization, and that gets elevated through the process. Just by way of reference, you mentioned 1.8% of seafarers in the world are female. I can tell you that on MSC Orchestra at this present moment in time, there are 18% of the population is female. It's not enough, but it's certainly much larger than the 1.8%, and some of them are very senior positions as well. So you will probably find on the cruise vessels a female in a position of authority that can assist in most cases. But as I said, we try and create Chinese walls to make sure that the HR officer and one or two of the officers don't report up the value chain in the vessel. They report directly to the office so that they're able to make sure that information flows in the right space and investigations happen. So there are challenges, but we do handle them in a very professional manner, in my opinion, in the way in which they're dealt with.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Ma'am, from TNPA, you have stated that you have mechanisms that are in place that are supposed to deter gender-based violence. If I may ask once again, how are you able to follow up on the effectiveness of these mechanisms?
Many times I think it's through the EAP program with what is being reported, and then there's a feedback as to on the closeout of those. With specifically looking at the effectiveness, that is something that I think we need to work on to go and reevaluate how effective the program is. To date, we haven't really done that.
Okay, so basically what you're saying that as things stand now, you still need to work. There's a lot more work that needs to be done.
Correct.
In order to follow up,
Yes.
and be able to actually see whether these mechanisms that are put in place are actually effective.
Yes, we still need a lot of work in that space. There's also, I think, like we've heard, is a lot of people are still to come forward, where they haven't really come forward for fear of victimization, for fear of being excluded, and also the struggles that people have already faced, where they feel if they take it up and nothing is going to be done. So from that point of view, yes, we need to do more.
Okay, moving right along. Can you please respond to the same question? Whether the mechanisms that you've put in place, whether the training that you've done, the awareness programs that you've done, how are you able to check that they are effective?